All right, guys. Well, welcome back in. We're here for episode 29. We are almost at the 30 mark. We're moving along.
Getting there, man. Getting close.
Zero.
Getting close.
Getting there. You guys have had a pretty busy month as well. I know we've shared that with our listeners that summer's been crazy. As we're recording this, y'all just got back from convention. Before we jump into today's topic, I was gonna say, fill us in a little bit. How were the conversations? I mean, obviously, one of the biggest things, other than seeing updates and stuff like that, is just connecting with franchises. You know, you guys get to build those relationships and those things. So give us your elevator pitch on how it went and what you loved the most.
Yeah, I tell you, the vibe and for again, our listeners, maybe you're new. We own a Serve Pro franchise business located in Birmingham. We have locations in Dallas and Houston as well currently, but the vibe of Serve Pro, our brand, is stronger than ever. It's the best brand in the industry. We like to say it's the Apple of our industry. We are making tremendous momentum, and I'm glad we're doing this halftime episode today because there's always people looking, right? We've got Serve Pro has a target on their back, and we got to keep moving forward, but know where we came from and where we're going to head. Had a lot of great meetings, a lot of great updates coming down the tube from headquarters, and so it's fun. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
So, Brady, give me what's your one thing you loved about maybe Boston or convention? What's one thing you enjoyed the most?
Well, I mean, I've had a lot of people this week that's asked me, like, hey, how was Boston? I said, well, I mean, I can tell you what the inside of the Omni Hotel looked like, but I didn't get a chance to. What we really should have done is gone up there like maybe a couple days early or stayed a couple days late because honestly speaking, last year when they announced Boston, I wasn't like super excited about it. But after being up there, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
There's the history.
Yeah.
So Melissa and I actually talked about it. We're going to schedule another time to go back up and spend maybe a week or something like that, and all kind of tours that you can do. And so just a fun place.
Boston's one of the places I've always wanted to visit. I'm a huge Celtics fan too. So,
well, there you go. There you go. We did go to Fenway Park.
We did.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. We saw where the Celtics play as on a drive-by with Uber.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Well, so like you mentioned, we're talking halftime. We are creeping up on that halftime mark for the year. I think actually we've hit it. Isn't it July 5th? Isn't that technically the middle of the year?
Yep.
So we've hit that. And so this is always a big time for us. You always, every year, this is something that you shared with us, Brady, as a team is, hey guys, we're at the halfway mark. What have you accomplished? What have you not accomplished? You now have 6 months left. And so we potentially have a 2-parter episode today because this is a big part. This is a chance for you to be like, all right, so you only get one 2025, you only get one 2026, you only get every year you get one. So what are you doing that year that's making an impact and setting you up for success for down the road? So I know this is a big episode for you to kind of talk about. This is our temperature check, our midway point.
Yeah. So let's dive into it. Kind of set the stage, set the scene a little bit. Encourage you guys, if you can. Now, if you're driving, don't close your eyes. But if you can, close your eyes. And what I want you to visualize is the first half, whatever game that you played, football, basketball, you name it. You're in the locker room. The door just closed, so you can feel the emotion of, hey, is this going well? Is this not going well? The last thing that you remember seeing when you went into the locker room as you left the field or left the court was the scoreboard. So what is the score telling you? You know, are we winning? Are we losing? But when you go into the locker room, and those of you that have played sports, I mean, you can kind of smell the scents, and you can remember where you were in those moments, and you can remember even some of the speeches that your coaches gave you. But when you go into the locker room, you've got a decision to make. A lot of times you don't have a whole lot of time to make those decisions. I mean, what are we talking? Maybe 10, 15 minutes max?
Yeah, because they do have to go back out and warm up.
You do have to go back out and warm up, and so you're looking at strategy. So what we wanted to do is kind of look at through that same lens today from a business standpoint or an organizational standpoint. And so the title for this episode is Halftime. To adjust or not to adjust? That is the question.
Yeah, and Brady, that's a great point on that because, obviously you've got the players involved, but more importantly, you got the coach who's standing there in front of the team and going, "Hey, team, this is what we did really well." They obviously provide stats in the locker room. Here's what we did well. Here's what we got to do to improve. The scoreboard says this. We're leading the game. Let's take, for instance, we're leading the game. In order to win this game, we've got to do this. Or it could be the complete opposite. Hey, guys, we're down. We're down by 4 points. And this is what we have to do to pick up momentum to gain as we continue the second half of this game. So I'm excited about this episode. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot to gain from this. And just so everyone knows, this is probably going to be a 2-part episode because it's a lot of good information. So just hang on with us. We'll gut check this about halfway through and see what happens.
Yeah. So to kind of hit you guys with it. So we're talking a little bit about that reality check. You're looking at those things. I mean, obviously, a lot of people have played sports, done things where you do that. But for you guys in business, what do you feel like? Do you feel like it's harder to, when you do that reality check and you're like, all right, it's July, middle of the year, we're either on target to hit our goal, behind target, or maybe you're one of those lucky few that are like, hey, we're ahead. How hard do you guys feel like it is as owners to pivot no matter where you are? Like, one, staying consistent if you're doing well. If it's not going well, do you feel like it's hard to make that pivot? Do you feel like how does that affect you as business owners and someone that's listening? Like, all right, what if somebody listening is behind? What do I do? How do I move on?
I think that's a great question, Adam. And I I think at the end of the day, it comes down to what is the data showing. And so there's a lot of decisions that have to be made in the locker room. Let's say that you're, like Benji said, let's say you're up by 4 points, okay? And you're winning, like you're winning the game, and there's some things that you're doing well. But guess what? Your opponents in the other locker room, guess what they're doing? They're trying to figure out a strategy of, I know like in football, there's a lot of plays and a lot of data and a lot of science that goes into, hey, we can see that they're doing these plays or running these patterns or whatever those look like. So you have to make a decision as a business leader. Do we keep doing that? Or do we adjust a little bit? Like, what's the competition going to do? So I think let's go back to the beginning. Let's look at January the 1st. And, we did a episode on strategic planning. Encourage anybody to go back and listen to that, watch that. So we set the strategic plan, January 2025, or fill in whatever year. Think about so the first couple minutes in the locker room, you're thinking about, okay, where were we headed? Like, what was it that we were trying to accomplish this year? And then the other question is, like, how's that really going?
Yeah.
Because 6 months in business or in any type of organization, that's an eternity. There's a lot of stuff that has happened. I mean, think about the world right now. What all has happened in the last 6 months? There's a lot of stuff that's happened. And so a lot of environmental factors, and sometimes I think, and we talked about this in strategic planning, but a lot of organizations get a strategic plan and they just set it on the shelf. So what we've encouraged you guys to do is take the strategic plan and constantly reiterate those things, with the team. So the question is, how are things actually going right now? So take a little reflective back and say, how are things going?
Yeah, and to add to that, that's a great point. It just seems, Brady, it seems like yesterday it was January 1st. We were turning the new year, and man, you look up and there's been it's been 7.5 months at this part of the recording that we're into the year. And you could get some owners or, business managers, business leaders could say, you know what? We've made a lot of great tweaks the first 6 months and not continue to develop the plan like he's talking about, because we can always get better. I mean, anyone can always get better. Yep. And if you're not careful, you can become comfortable. You can become complacent because, man, we've done all this stuff. We're pushing. But at the same time, like you said, the competition or your the other team, so to speak, is going, hey, we're going to put together a plan because we want to do better than what they're doing. Yeah. So you just got to be careful of that, really careful.
Do you feel like as business owners and even like your leadership your staff, your director team, do you feel like your verbiage and the way that is presented to their teams, from what you presenting to leadership staff presenting down? Do you feel like even the way that you guys phrase things, I mean, something, that's even ingrained in my head forever is it comes from you, Brady, is you always say, hope's not a strategy. And, because that's something you say right away. You're like, man, I hope we do this. And you're like that. No, you got to get out of your mindset. So do you feel like that as well as you're figuring these things out, as you're looking, when you're presenting to the team where you're at, whether it's good, middle, bad, do you feel like the way that presentation and the way that you as a team talk about things affect where you're going to go and set the course for the year? Because I know one of the things we talked about is like, you got to be careful because staying the course can be a trap. How are these things?
Well, we're going to talk about that. I think that it doesn't matter what type of business that you're in or organization that you're in. Typically it always comes back to the fundamentals. And we talked about this. I think on the last episode when we were doing the 5 coaching habits of, when we would come into the season, I was a basketball player. I never played football. We won't go there. But
he did talk about it a few episodes ago. You can listen to that.
You can go back and listen to that. But we always worked on. We just want to jump in and do the fun stuff. Let's scrimmage. Let's play a game. Let's do the fun stuff. And the coaches were always like, nope. Let's focus on the fundamentals first. So that's dribbling, that's passing, that is layups, that's free throws, that's conditioning. All those things. So you have to come back to. I think halftime's a good time to reevaluate, are we hitting the fundamentals? And here's the reason I say that is because when you're not having the year that you would like to be having, if you're losing, then you're going to go out and you're going to overcompensate to try to make something happen, right? Conversely, if you're doing really, really well, you can get into a complacent mentality and say, well, feels like we're doing all the right stuff. I mean, we're winning. I mean, we've got a lot of work coming in, or we've got these big jobs coming in. And so now we start to get complacent and we start letting things slide, some of those fundamentals. And we just got to, like, the part of the reset is back to what are those fundamentals that we need to hit on. So when we're looking at the reality check, as you call it, Adam, the first thing is we want to be real. Where are we at? Okay. Don't be optimistic. Don't be pessimistic. Just be honest with yourself, honest with your team. Like where are we at? There's a scripture that I found, Lamentations 3:40. It says, "Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord." Okay. So even our spiritual life, when we start to sway, Hebrews talks about that salvation or Jesus is our anchor. So if we're anchored in Him, even though we veer off, if you got an anchor in a boat and you veer off, what's going to happen? It's going to like tug on you,
catch
you, and bring you back. So that's what these fundamentals do. And so let's talk about. What we're trying to do today is not really give you an answer, but really give you more things to think about.
Yeah,
we're not saying change everything. We're not saying change nothing. But we're going to give you some examples or some things to think through of, okay, how do I need to think about this? So let's start with when staying the course is a trap. Okay, so we change nothing. So we're going to talk about 3 F's. Okay, the fear trap, the familiar I can't say that word. Familiarity trap. Yeah, what Adam said. And then the ego trap. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the fear trap. What if I change something and it breaks everything? So y'all talk about that. What happens if I change something? Like it feels comfortable, it feels good, but what if I change it and like the what if? What if something bad happens?
Yeah, I mean, you could really. I think it depends on the situation. Obviously, if you're doing well, why would you want to change it? Is what I would say. Doesn't mean you don't. More of a tweak to the process to get better. It could. I guess it could let the. Am I going to let my team down? If we've done really well, am I going to let them down? I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail them.
Well, I think something for me, and I was actually sharing this with Benji yesterday. We were texting the night before, and I've shared the water issues we've had at this ridiculous house. But you're just talking about making changes, and we had a water
time to move, Adam.
I know.
I said the same thing.
But we had a water faucet outside that was slowly leaking, right? Okay. And y'all stick with me. I have somewhere we're going with it. It's slowly leaking. It needed to be fixed. It's like, it's leaking. I don't know if there's water behind. I mean, we have that on the outside. Luckily, it's not in the house. But over time, that water is going to mold. It's going to cause issues. It's going to be there. So I was like, I got to get it fixed. In the process, I accidentally ripped the faucet off. Like I ripped that sucker clean off because it was. And so my wife wasn't happy. There's no water. Now we have no water in the house. If we turn the water on for a moment, it's just shooting out. Luckily not come back in. But my point is that change needed to happen. It was still working, right? Like we had water in the house. The faucet was working, but it was leaking. But over time, that's causing damage. And yes, it may have cost us money. We had to call somebody to come. They did it. They got it fixed. We got a local plumber that came and did it. But if I hadn't decided to make a change and say, all right, I got to fix this, I don't know what other issues would have been caused. There could have been molding that I wasn't aware of, erosion which eventually may have come into the house on that outside wall, the insulation. So my point is that was the faucet working? Yes, it was doing what it was supposed to. It wasn't shooting water. We still had water in the house, but it had a small issue that needed to be fixed. And because we fixed it, now it's not leaking at all. It's clean. It's not doing anything. So sometimes even when things are working, I feel like in your business, and maybe you guys can touch on that, but things look like they're working on the surface, right? But underneath, behind that wood planking, there could be something that's brewing, something that's going. So, hey, we've got to take these things when we see these small details. That's something we've been talking a lot about at the church, because we miss the small details. Like we always fix the big things. We fix the things that are on the surface that our church sees, that our staff sees. But the small things, the small processes, we don't think about those. And in the end, those small cracks turn into big issues. So I feel like you have to make those changes sometimes. I mean, I would rather have not had water in our house and not broken the faucet off. But because of doing that and making that change and attempting to fix it, which I failed at, but attempting to fix it, it allowed us to fix the overall problem. And now that's clean. So.
Well, and I think to speak to that, Adam, I mean, sometimes when we have things that we've done in our business, and they were, and we'll talk about this too, but they were good ideas at one time.
Yep.
But maybe they do need to change. As leaders, we have to have the courage and the boldness to recognize that. I mean, nobody wants their baby called ugly. Okay. I mean, nobody wants their baby called ugly. So we have to have the courage, courage really isn't the absence of fear. You think about all these courageous people. It wasn't that they were afraid, because they might have been afraid, but courage is actually obedience in the middle of it. So courage isn't the absence of being afraid. It's actually running to it. We've talked about, I'm part of a group called C12, and we call it the buffalo culture. The buffaloes actually run into the storm instead of cows that run away from the storm. They're both going to experience a storm, but the buffaloes are going to experience it go through it in less amount of time because they're going to run through it.
Head first through it.
So that's the fear trap. If we make a change, what's it going to do? The second one, I'll let you say it, Adam, because I can't say the word. It's the
familiarity.
There you go. Okay. So I don't know why I can't say that. It's just, whatever. But most people double down on a broken strategy because it's familiar. Mm-hmm. So just think about if you've still got your eyes closed. Hopefully you don't, but especially if you're driving. But think about, is there something that's broken in your business, but you've held on to it because it's very familiar? And as leaders, we're thinking about, changing things. Maybe it's a familiar system. Maybe it's a familiar role or a function or somebody that's in the organization. Maybe it's familiar excuses.
Mm-hmm. We've always told it, just because we've always done it doesn't mean we have to keep doing it. I mean, there's been plenty of meetings that you and I have had that's been my excuse. Well, hey, this is how we do it. This is how we've always done it. And you've always kind of positioned us to think outside the box to say, all right, just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean that it can't be improved upon.
Yeah, that's right. John Maxwell says this. He says, the greatest enemy of future success is actually past success. So just because something worked out well, in the past doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out well in the future. Well, man, we did that 2 years ago and it was the greatest strategy. It was the greatest thing, and sometimes it's not the best thing going forward. Here's something else. I mean, I debated whether to put this in here or not, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's our show. But from a
let it go. Just say it.
Just say
it.
This is maybe on a more spiritual level, but sometimes what God blesses in one season becomes baggage in the next season.
For sure.
That's really good.
Okay.
And it's
so
very
like
true.
what does that mean? If you look at like manna in the Old Testament, I mean, what a blessing that God gave the children of Israel manna to eat. But when they got into the promised land, what did they do? They started complaining.
Yep.
Well, we used to have this. Well, he's like, that's done. Go into your new season. So what was blessing in the past became baggage in the future. Take Saul and David, for example. David wanted to go fight Goliath, and Saul, he was the soldier. He had the armor, he had the swords and all this, and David actually tried it on and it was too big. He's like, guys, this ain't gonna work. I trust in the Lord. And he went and picked up a couple of, 5 stones and did the work. So when we think about this in our business, sometimes that, and I believe, Benji and I, we feel like that we're stewards of this business for God, and we try to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit and what he's telling us to do. And there may have been some things in seasons in the past that are just different now. We've got to keep listening. Maybe we're not in the product business, but maybe it's a product that you launched years ago and it's not working anymore. Yep. You need something new. Maybe it's a team structure that you had at one point in time that you need to change up. Maybe it's a way that you lead. Maybe you need to change the way that you lead, or maybe it's like a routine or a mindset that you have. We just need to be sensitive. And since we're on the spiritual subject, Isaiah 43:18-19 says, "Forget the former things, do not dwell in the past. See, I am doing a new thing." So just something for you guys to reflect on is there things that maybe, they're, and I don't necessarily like to use the word blessed, but for these purposes, we'll use it. But maybe we were blessed on something in the past and we're relying on that particular blessing in that season to say that it's going to be the same in this season.
Yeah.
And we're not listening and we're not being sensitive to. So what do you guys think about that?
I think it's very easy to just keep doing the same thing over and over because it's familiar. I mean,
yeah.
And the challenge is you're right. If you're not careful, technology changes, processes change, people change, your environment changes, and you can go, hey, I can go do X over here and do it that way just because it's always worked, and the system may not be set up to do it that way, or you've got it all working to your advantage, and you're just going, man, I'm just checking a box, X done, I's dot, T's crossed, finished. But you've got to adapt to what is, the newness of where we're headed, where we're going, where we want to go, and if you're not, man, you can really get familiar places can get really out of whack quick.
Yeah, we're going through a lot of that right now too with what we're doing with the church. One of the big things we're getting ready to do is make a website change, and that's huge for the church. Not only are they making a website change, we're rebranding things because it's never been done. Yeah. But it needed it. We're working on some things as a church that needs an update. But one of the things we talked about is our current provider. There's nothing wrong with them. They haven't done anything for us to want to change, but their business model has changed, and for the better for them. They're doing much better. But our model at the church has changed, and we need to be able to transition into something that's scalable because we believe the church is growing and it's continue growing. But we also need something that really matches where we are with the growth of the church. And I think sometimes in business, that's the same thing, is that it's not necessarily a negative thing to change, right? Like just because you're changing doesn't mean that it wasn't not working. But like you said, Brady, like there's a lot that's happened in the last 6 months. I mean, think about things with our economy. Think about, just tariffs and cost of living. And I mean, there's a lot of things that happen and you have to adjust. And if you don't make those adjustments, you're going to fail and you're going to fall behind. And that's what we've talked about. Like, I know this is a big thing for the church. I know doing things that they've never done marketing. They've never done Google ads. Never in your life would you think, why would we need to do that? Well, people are looking for a church. They're looking for places. People are looking for the business of ServPro. You've got to be able to get in front of people when they need it and do things. And sometimes you've got to make a change just to be able to continue progressing forward. So,
Well, I think they got the right person to help them do that, Adam.
yeah, I hope so. I'm trying. I'm excited.
So let's talk about the last trap, okay? The last trap is the ego trap, okay? And this kind of goes back to the baby scenario, but let's say you're the leader, you built the strategy, you built the system, but the system's just not working anymore. Then you have to be the one to say, hey, listen, this is not working, right? And you have to kind of set the ego aside, set the pride aside, and say, we've got to make a change. And this is where your leadership team can really come in. You know, the Bible says in the multitude of counselors, there's wisdom in Proverbs. And so having people around you that can help you make those decisions and see things that maybe you can't see, then either you're on an island by yourself or you've got, you know, people with you. So making those adjustments. Here's the reality. And I may trademark this quote because I really like this, but it said, so just take this in. All right. Leaders don't get paid to be right. Leaders don't get paid to be right. They get paid to make it right. Okay. So a lot of times as leaders, we want to, we want to be right. We want to have the right answer. And sometimes the right answer is somebody else that has the good idea. Or somebody else that has a solution. So
I've always heard
get paid to be right. They get paid to get it right.
That's right.
I've always heard if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yep. That's right.
And I feel when you said that, that's the first thing that came to my head, because if I'm not supposed to get it right, I'm supposed to, like you said, make sure we get it right. And so I need to be in the room with other people that are better than I am. And I think that's something too, culturally, is that people, I feel like we're in a culture now where titles and what people do are such a big part, but sometimes that ego, you have to take out of it and be like, look, if they're better than me, that means I put myself in the right place.
Yeah. And that's a great setup for go back and listen to the last episode of being a leader, the 5 coaching habits of a great leader. Cause you're right. Brady said it right. They don't get paid. We don't get paid to be right. We get paid to get it right.
That's good, Brady.
Sometimes it takes a team around
Trademark
us.
Trademark it.
Sometimes it takes a team around us to help give ideas. Maybe we don't have all the ideas. To your point, if you're the smartest in the room, you're in the wrong room. So you gotta have a team around you. I think there's value in corrective action, at the same time corrective praise. You know, you've got to be able to tell people where they are doing well at, so that they will be able to understand when we do give corrective action as a leader, what we got to do to get it right. Yeah. And again, we may not have the answer. It may take them to help us get there.
Yeah.
So to kind of land the plane, I think on this episode, like I think you guys are right, that this is a 2-parter, just because there's so much information to cover here, and we'll try to get these out to you quickly. And when I say we, I mean Adam. But so if we're going to make adjustments, all right, like how do we think through those adjustments? Because what we'll come back on next episode, and we're going to talk about the complete opposite of, hey, there's no adjustments that are needed.
Yeah.
Just because we feel like there needs to be an adjustment, you know, or we want to change just for the sake of change. So we're gonna talk about that in next episode. But if we're gonna make an adjustment, we feel like we need to make an adjustment, then how do we do that? We do that through 3 R's. We review, we recalibrate, and we recommit. Okay. So at the beginning of the year, when we set these strategic plans in place, we reviewed the last year. We reviewed 2024. What was working, what's not working, what do we want to do as we're going to go forward? We recalibrated the team. Probably most of you, I would imagine, I would hope so. If you didn't, maybe think about this for next year, but you probably went offsite with your team. It's a way for you to recalibrate as a leadership team, get away from the office, get away from the hustle and bustle and all that stuff. But you're recalibrating and saying, okay, what do we need to focus on, and how do we need to do these strategies? And then as a leadership team, we're recommitting to what we're doing. So we're doing the same thing mid-year. If we're going to make a change, is we're reviewing the first half of the year, what worked, what didn't work. We're recalibrating. If you can get off site, I think it's a great time to do that as well. And then recommit to, okay, we're gonna make some halftime adjustments. Like we need to go forward for the rest of the year, and don't be. I mean, have the courage, have the boldness that if you need to make a change, make a change. Going back to John Maxwell, he says mid-course corrections are a sign of strength, not weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So you may be thinking, I don't want to make a change. It's going to confuse a lot of people, but you know deep down that you need to make those changes. So it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength.
Yeah.
So,
well, no, that's great, Brady. Great job on getting this all together. And, we've said it before. I think that quote there at the end, the mid-course corrections are signs of strength, not weakness. Control what you can. Obviously, there are things that are beyond our control. It doesn't expose us, but it does help us get better. We just want to say thank you all for just tuning in to another episode of the Higher Up Podcast. Again, you can find us on any social platform. Connect with us, share, get the word out. Appreciate you guys so much, and go out there and choose to live a higher up life. See you next time.